All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our Aquariums Online Academy. My name is Talia. I'm from our education department, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what it takes to build a habitat. Now, what we mean by that is kind of what it takes to build an exhibit here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Really, we're going to be using our exhibits kind of as examples of some of the things we need to think about when we're building a home for our animals. And that basically is what habitat means. So a habitat is a home for an animal. We definitely have a lot of different habitats represented here at the aquarium from all over the Pacific. So we're going to take a closer look at sort of what it takes to build some of these exhibits here at the aquarium. Again, some of the things that we have to think about, which is probably a little bit similar to maybe some of the things you might want to think about if you're having a fish exhibit or a fish tank at home as well. All right, so I wanted to start off this morning actually, first off, I'm going to remind myself, and Miss Amanda just reminded me, that if you have questions during this program today, if you are curious about something, if there's something you are wondering about, you are welcome to text those questions in when you're watching us live. So if you're watching this at 9 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning, you can text us in at 562-286-1838. If you're wondering about something during our program, please feel free to ask questions. I am by no means an exhibit building expert, but I will do my best. But also, if you just have a bunch of questions, feel free to text them in. Happy to answer questions this morning. If you are watching this later on, after we have aired, you're welcome to still ask questions. We just ask that you email us instead. And that email is down below. The number here, it's live@lbaop.org. So again, those are two ways to communicate with us depending on when you're watching. So if you're watching it live, text those questions in. Watching it later, email us instead. All right, so let's kind of wake up our scientist brains this morning and make some observations. So we're going to start out with this tropical exhibit that's behind me here. And let's take a moment to look at it and see, what do we notice? What kind of stands out to us? Not just all the beautiful fish. We're going to try to focus not just on the fish, but kind of all the stuff going on around the fish, behind the fish. What are some things that you notice? I'm going to get out of the way so you can see our exhibit a little bit better here. And let's try to figure out what is going on. What are some of the things we need to think about when we're building an exhibit here? And you're welcome to text those observations in. And I'll take a look at it too and make some observations myself. So I'm noticing a couple things off the bat. Maybe you're noticing this too. I noticed there's some rocks. And I notice there's some stuff growing on these rocks. I notice that there's some corals growing in this exhibit. So that gave me my clue. When I think about corals, I think about warm places. So I bet the water in that exhibit is nice and toasty warm too. So we're looking at a tropical exhibit here. I notice that there are lots of different fish in there. There's lots of sizes of fish too, so that's something we need to think about too, is the size of our exhibit. If we're having big fish, small fish, we want to kind of have a space that's big enough for the biggest fish, and obviously that would hopefully be big enough for the smallest fish as well. I also noticed that this particular exhibit looks like it's pretty well lit. There's definitely some big spots where there's probably a light shining down. And that's definitely another thing we need to think about with exhibits too, is lighting. And we'll try to talk about a lot of these things in a little bit more detail after we get some more ideas. Now, you can't quite see it in this view, but there's definitely also going to be stuff on the bottom, right? It's not just this sort of rock that would be against, say, the wall of the exhibit, but there's definitely going to be some stuff on the bottom too, maybe some sand or some gravel or something like that. So they kind of have a floor in addition to walls of their room. Very cool. We can switch over to another habitat to get some more ideas. We can go to a colder water one. So Miss Amanda's going to shift us to a different exhibit here. So this one looks a little bit different than what we were looking at before. It's not quite as densely packed. We definitely had lots of corals, lots of little fish. So this one looks like a little bit more sort of medium-sized fish. We definitely still have some rock work here. We have some big rocks in the back here. I noticed we can see that gravel we were talking about earlier a lot better down there. That's our Garibaldi down there too. Hello, Garibaldi. Ooh, and we have a shark going by. This is our leopard shark. Very cool. But I also noticed there's a different sort of base to this habitat here too. It's kind of floating here and there. And there's a nice green. Actually, there's a friend hiding in this green example too. Do you see the eel right there? Oh my goodness. Very cool. All right. But there's all this stuff floating in the exhibit and kind of going with the flow of the exhibit as well. So this particular exhibit is based off of the habitat of a kelp forest as well. So we do, at the aquarium, we do use artificial kelp just because real kelp grows very quickly. It could grow 2 feet in a day in the right conditions. So it would not be the easiest thing to take care of. There would be, ooh, this is kind of what it looks like out in the ocean. So it grows very, very quickly all the way from the bottom all the way up to the top where all the nice sunlight is coming down. It grows very, very quickly. And it would get really, really thick. It would be really hard to see some of our fish friends we would like you to see here at the aquarium. If it was real kelp, and it would, you know, we would probably have to have divers in there like trimming it all day long. So it's a lot easier to use artificial kelp in our exhibits. Don't tell the fish. They don't mind it. They don't seem to mind. We did have an example of live coral before in some of our smaller exhibits, but in some of our bigger exhibits, we do also use artificial coral as well. And that's just for ease of care, to take care of it here at the aquarium. We also want to make sure that the real coral, for the most part, and the real kelp kind of stays in the ocean to provide those homes for all the animals that need it. Most of our live coral is either from confiscations that were given to the aquarium, or they are from coral that we've grown here at the aquarium as well. Ooh, and Miss Amanda also put up another good reason that why we might have fake coral here at the aquarium, and that's because we have some fish that eat coral. So we don't want them eating plastic. That wouldn't be good. So we use artificial coral in their exhibits so that we can still represent coral, but have these types. But we give them something else to eat. So we basically make these cubes of plaster of Paris, which is very similar to the calcium carbonate they would be eating off of a coral skeleton. And then we put their food inside that. So we give them a substitute for real coral, so they're not munching on the coral in the exhibits that they're in. Very cool. All right, so I think we've gotten some decent ideas of some of the things we need to think about when we're making an exhibit. Hopefully you have made some good observations as well. Again, if you have questions, if you're curious about something, you're welcome to text those questions in. We'll get that number back on the screen here. There we go. 562-286-1838. So I kind of wanted to start putting those ideas together so they're not quite as nebulous kind of floating through our brains. And I'm going to go over to my Explorer camera and I'm going to start drawing an exhibit. Hopefully you can start putting those ideas together about what are some things we need to make an exhibit. All right. So this is my whiteboard here. Here's my hand. Hello. And let's start drawing an exhibit. I'm going to keep things pretty basic, so I'm not going to draw something super elaborate, but I just want to get sort of the basic ideas of what are some things we need. So first off, we need an exhibit, right? We need a space to put all our water and fish and friends in. So I'm going to just draw a very basic sort of open box here. A lot of our exhibits are open at the top, so it's easier to clean, to get inside, to take care of things. So this is my exhibit here. It's very fancy. And we need to put some stuff in our exhibit, right? So we probably need some water. That would help. So I'm going to draw some water. Oops. Let's see. I want to make sure. Am I good? I'm good. All right. My left hand keeps bumping some things on our camera, and it beeps at me. But we're good. All right. So I'm going to do some water up at the top. Yeah, and if you want to design your own exhibit while we're watching, you could do that too, if you'd like. All right, I got some water up at the top. We mentioned that we need some stuff on the bottom. So we kind of have walls already, but we need a floor. So I'm going to put what we call substrate down below here, and a lot of times that's gravel, rock, sand, stuff like that. Miss Amanda's, ooh, that's kind of what it looks like in the ocean there. I got some water and some substrate. She's got some stuff on the bottom for the fish to kind of rest on. All right, I got some substrate. Nice. If I was drawing a tropical exhibit, I might want to draw some coral. If I was drawing a cold water exhibit, I might want to draw some kelp here to give them sort of a space to live in, to rest in, to hide in, some coverage. So I'm going to draw some kelp because I like drawing kelp. So I'm going to draw a little holdfast here. I'm going to draw a little kind of stipe, or looks kind of like a stem. I'm going to draw some leaves of kelp. Get some more up on the top there because it gets pretty thick. So I have drawn, I guess, a cold water exhibit for our example today. All right, I got some kelp. I need a fish friend. So whoop, I'm going to knock over all my art supplies. That's okay. And I'm going to draw a fish friend in our exhibit. Have a happy fish. Whee! All right, I got a fish friend. Boop, boop, boop. And then, just like you have maybe a fish at home or a pet at home, or maybe you have a dog or a cat or lizard or bird at home, we need to not only have a home for them, we need to take care of them too, right? So we need some food to feed our fish. So I'm going to have a little can of fishy flakes to feed our fish. I'm going to go in the water there. But fishy's going to eat the flakes, and then it's going to go through fishy, and then it's going to come out as well. So another thing we need to think about is not only are we feeding our fish some food, we got to clean up after them too. So we need to keep our water clean in our exhibit too, and we do that through filters. So I'm going to draw a filter on our exhibit over here. That's going to help me keep the water clean. Again, I'm just keeping things really, really simple in my drawing here. We'll go over some more elaborate examples a little bit later on. And a lot of times our filters, we want to focus on all the cool, awesome, pretty stuff in the exhibits you see at the aquarium. A lot of the filters, things that are keeping things moving, things that are keeping things clean, is kind of hidden in the back of our exhibits here. So I'm going to say this is like the back of the exhibit where all the water gets circulated. So having the water moving, we're having dirty water being sucked out, clean water being put back in. That's going to help keep our fish healthy and our water nice and clean in our exhibit. So those are some of the kind of basic things we might want to think about when we are drawing, or not drawing a fish tank, but also building an exhibit or a habitat here at our aquarium. Aha! And I see that Miss Amanda has put up a lot of pipes. So this is kind of what those back areas look like behind a lot of our exhibits. There's actually a lot of different filters on display right now. So let's jump into filters and talk about what kind of types of filters we might need and what do they do? Because they kind of do different things to clean the water in different ways. So this one over here, this barrel-looking thing, this is what we call a sand filter. This is an example of what we call a mechanical filter. So this is taking care of big stuff that you might find in the water. So all the water in the exhibit is kind of coming through these pipes. They're going into this barrel that is packed very tightly with sand. The water is flowing through, but the big stuff is staying behind for the most part. And then the cleaner water is continuing through the exhibit through some other filters before it gets back into the exhibit it came from. So sand filters, mechanical filters, big stuff. That means they're going to be hopefully getting out most of the leftover food. The big waste, hair, scales, that sort of stuff, solid waste, is going to get trapped by this sand filter here, and then the cleaner water is going to continue through the exhibit. Another type of filter that we use is a chemical filter. And so mechanical filter, big stuff. chemical filter, getting the little stuff out of the water. So that's going to be getting things like bugs, parasites, that sort of stuff. This is also helping trap some of the waste in the water as well. This is called a foam fractionator, if you want to be very, very fancy about it. So we have more water probably coming through this pipe here. This is a sump here, down here. So it probably collects in here, goes up through there, goes in there. I'm going to get good at my backwards pointing one of these days. There we go. Right through there. And this force, I forget if it's pressure or flow or something. In any event, what's happening to the water is it's starting to bubble. It's starting to get really, really foamy and frothy. And those bubbles are going to push a lot more of the waste, kind of the more solid bits, up to the top. It sort of will spill over and collect into this cylinder here. And then we can clean that out. And the rest of the water that's continuing to flow through the system, getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, is going to continue on. Dirty stuff is going to be left behind, and then we can clean it out. We kind of clean it out with like a rag or a toilet brush. It's kind of gross. It's not my favorite thing to clean out. But yeah, that's one of the ways that we can help keep our waters cleaning. You can actually see this in action at the beach too. When you have that foamy bits of the wave, they're kind of acting like the same thing. So maybe you want to think twice about making a mustache with wave foam. Just some food for thought there. So we have mechanical filters. We have chemical filters. This is another example of a really, really simple filter where this is more of a mechanical filter. This is kind of a big cloth sock. It almost feels like really, really thick felt or wool. The water is flowing through this pipe and going through this sock and then being kind of strained through this sock. And again, you're going to have, I'm going to get away from my background because I notice it getting bubbly there. It's going to go through. Solid bits, algae, stuff is going to get stuck inside the sock. Cleaner water is going to flow through this sump, through the pipes, through the rest of the exhibit. And that's going to help, again, get our water cleaner and cleaner and cleaner before it cycles back to the exhibit it came from. And then how we clean this is we just kind of flip it inside out. We kind of wash it down with a big hose, and then we can put it back on. I also noticed there is this thing in this picture too. This is an example of a different type of filtration called a biological filtration. This is I wonder if we zoomed out there from that original picture. This is kind of what it looks like, a little bit more front and center here. And this is a tower filled with little plastic balls called bio balls. They kind of look like little prongs on them. They look kind of spiky. They're not sharp, but they have lots of little bits on them to create a lot of surface area for bacteria to grow on. Now, I know a lot of times when you think about bacteria, you think about germs, you're like, ooh, that's bad, ick, yuck. This is good bacteria, because what this bacteria is doing is it's helping out with taking care of some of the fish waste, especially from the pneumonia that you might find in fish pee, essentially. So it is taking the ammonia levels down by eating some of the, they're turning the nitrates, I believe, into nitrites, which is a little, reverse it. I was talking with Miss Amanda before I started, and I misread my notes that I corrected. So, reverse that. They are turning nitrites into nitrates because that is a lesser concentration of ammonia, and that's going to help keep our water healthier and cleaner. So we have a lot of different filters at play to help keep our waters nice and healthy. Now, we mentioned that some of the examples we were looking at earlier, some of them were tropical. Some of them were kind of more local water, more colder water. Some of them might even be colder than what I can talk, I promise. What we might find here in Southern California. So maybe we need to somehow make our water even colder than the water you might find outside our door here in the harbor. So we need to think about, how do we heat up our water? How do we cool down our water? And we can do that through heaters and chillers. So as the water is filtering, is getting cleaner, it's also going to go through a spot that might heat it up to a certain temperature or cool it down to a certain temperature. So I believe somewhere in here are some of those heat exchanges where you're going to make the water colder or hotter, depending on where it's ultimately going to end up in the exhibits. So that's another thing we need to think about. Thank you, with building a habitat. Lighting is also very, very important. So these are big halogen lights that are on the back of one of our exhibits here. This especially is important in tropical areas where it's going to be a little bit different of a light pattern. It's definitely going to be a lot sunnier than sometimes you might find here in Southern California. So that's something we want to think about when we're making our exhibits here at the aquarium. We want them to look like home. A lot of our exhibits are based off of real places, but we want them to feel like home as well. So if we are in an area where it's super, super sunny and we have a cloudy day here in Long Beach, we want to make sure that they still feel like they're in a super sunny place. So some of our exhibits have big skylights in the top, so we can get some natural sunlight coming down. If that's not cutting it, if that's not sunny enough, we have big halogen and UV lights to help out as well. Super important for tropical places. It's also important for some of our animals that we have here as well, especially a species of bird that we have here called a puffin. They actually change their feathers according to the seasons. So we want to make sure that when it's summertime and they need to change into their summer feathers, we're getting those light cues of, it's summertime, I should change my feathers. Same thing with wintertime. We want to make sure those light cues are the same of, it's wintertime, I should change my feathers. And that they're changing at the right time. They're not changing early, too late, too many times. So we want to make sure that their exhibits are really, really keyed into the subtle changes of light. Just how we notice it'll get darker in the winter, it'll get more sunnier in the summer. We want those changes to be happening in our exhibits as well. We have some great questions coming. We had a question about how does filtering happen in the ocean, right? Because we don't have like a big filter like sitting on top of a cliff somewhere cycling water. So a lot of that is kind of happening with a couple of different things. Some of it's happening with the motion of the ocean. The ocean's kind of moving water from the top to the bottom as it's going around the world. Animals are also kind of being more of a biological filter to those waters as well. So we have filter feeders like mussels, clams, sponges. Those are kind of acting as those more mechanical filters. They're literally filtering the water through their body to eat, but they're also, as they're doing that, they're filtering the water. So that kind of helps play that role. And again, we were talking about the waves kind of acting like those foam fractionators. They're kind of pulling some of the heavier, more solid stuff out of the water as they're washing up to the shore as well. So there's other kind of components in play in the ocean that we're trying to replicate with technology here at the aquarium. And again, we had a similar question about how do the seawaters stay clean. So they're kind of relying on some of those other types of filters that are in place, whether it be the motion of the ocean or the animals that live within them to help kind of filter those waters as well. Mussels, clams also play a really important role in helping keep the water nice and clean. There's some cool experiments that I've seen where they've put, a bunch of oysters in some dirty water and ran a clock, and they're like, oh my gosh, now it's crystal clear now. So yeah, they're really, really good at helping keep the water nice and clean. Some of the animals that live in the ocean. Great questions, my friends. All right, so speaking of the motion of the ocean, flow is another thing we want to think about with our exhibits, because again, we want them to feel at home. So we want to make sure that the water not only is moving enough to keep it nice and clean, but we are also want to making sure that it's moving similar to what it's moving at home. So this is some of our meters on the water on the... Yeah, this is the flow over here. So this is, see, I can read. It says flow right there. So this is keeping a little monitor that's keeping track of our flow in a particular exhibit here. I think this is gallons per minute up here. And then this is looking at the temperature. So this looks like it might be a particularly cold exhibit that we're looking at. So we're thinking about flow. We also want to think about, do they live in a place where there's waves? Do we want to make waves? So we definitely have a little bit of a heavier flow in some of our exhibits that might be representing areas on the coast areas, like our tide pools here. This is our surge channel here. We definitely have some wave action going on in our exhibit. And again, this is just so wow, this is just so the animals feel more at home. And we can do that a couple of different ways. Sometimes it's just a timed sort of jet of water that shoots into the exhibit to create that wave you saw coming off the corner there. That one right there. Sometimes it's also like a paddle system as well. So it's something mechanical that is pushing the water at a set time to just like you make kind of like a wave action in a pool. I think it's very similar to that. Sometimes it's a water jet or a pump. Sometimes it's like a paddle, something pushing, literally pushing the water, displacing the water. So you get that sort of wave action there as well. So waves is another thing we want to think about. Lighting is another thing we want to think about. Temperature is another thing we want to think about. And we also want to think about what animals are we putting together as well. So you might notice that a lot of our exhibits, it's not just highlighting one animal or one particular animal like I drew in my picture earlier. We have lots of different types of animals living in our exhibits. So we want to think about not only like maybe we're basing this off of a real place. We've had divers go in there to the place, taking a bunch of pictures saying, ooh, look at all this stuff we could replicate here at the aquarium. We also want to think about if we put these animals together, are they going to play nice? Are we putting too much prey and predator together? Are we putting too much big fish, little fish together? So we want to find that balance of representing the animals that live in these places, but also that are going to play nice together and aren't going to, munch on each other, because that's not going to look good. So that's another thing we want to think about, at least when we're building exhibits here at the aquarium. I want to take a moment too. We just have a couple more minutes together, I believe. Yep, you got a minute or two together. I want to take a moment to also talk about caring for our animals as well, because that's kind of the next logical step, right? We've built a home for them. We've gotten them to the aquarium. Just like you have a pet at home, a dog, a cat, a fish, a bird, we need to take care of them next. So that's not only feeding them, cleaning up after them, it's also keeping their bodies active, keeping their minds active as well. So some of our animals, like our awesome sea lions here, they get exercise. You want to have them not only kind of coming up to have a snack, but also kind of getting some exercise, doing some high energy behavior so their bodies kind of at in good condition. We're also kind of checking to make sure everything's moving the way that it should. This one is checking out their teeth. So they're saying, ah, just like you would at a dentist. Checking out their teeth. They do sometimes go to the dentist. Ooh, and they can brush their teeth as well. So they have their very own little toothbrush. I think they have a little bit more of a fishy flavor to their toothpaste though. But we can definitely brush their teeth as well. Now obviously in the ocean they're not getting their teeth brushed with a toothbrush. They are using rough material that they're eating to kind of brush their teeth instead. That is adorable. So they're definitely getting their teeth brushed as well, at least here at the aquarium. They can also get a checkup. So this penguin is getting a checkup. So just like you go to the doctor every year to get a physical, to say like, hey, how am I doing? Get some basic ideas of height, weight, take a blood test, blood pressure, that sort of stuff. We're doing very similar things with our animals here just to make sure they are nice and healthy. And we not only want to keep their bodies active, we want to keep their minds active as well. So a lot of times we'll do things like enrichment. We'll give them toys. We'll give them little food puzzles, something to kind of challenge your minds a little bit as well. So they're not getting bored. They're not getting into mischief, because it's not good when animals get into mischief. So we definitely, let's see. This is one of our sharks here. Ooh, Miss Amanda says this is a shark getting an ultrasound here. So the shark went into a stretcher so we can kind of keep them a little bit more still for the procedure. And then they are getting an ultrasound to check out their insides as well as their outsides. Very cool. So yeah, we definitely do want to make sure that we are taking care of our animals here. And that looked like a little bit of a reading you saw at the end there. Very nice. So we want to make sure that we take care of our animals here at the aquarium in addition to building their home. So thank you guys for joining me this morning. Thank you for your questions. My friends who texted in questions. and learning a little bit more about what it takes to build a habitat here at the aquarium. If we do have any school groups watching, I encourage you teachers, if you don't mind, texting in the number of students that are watching with you, just so we can get a little bit of a better idea of our viewership numbers. That helps us out with collecting that data. So you're welcome to text those student numbers in. We'll get that number back up on the screen in just a moment. It is, I believe, let's see if I can memorize it, 562-286-1838. Did I get that right, Miss Amanda? I think I did. That's okay. Miss Amanda is busy typing away there. That's all right. Did I get, oh, maybe I did. All right, anyways, if I didn't get right, I'll get it right this time. 562-286-1838. I think I almost got it. I think I missed a number. That's all right. If you're welcome to text those student numbers in, just so, again, we get a little bit a better idea of our viewership numbers. And again, thank you guys for joining me this morning. If you have any further questions, we ask that you email us at this time instead. So that is live@lbaop.org if you have any further questions. But again, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next week for some more Aquariums Online Academy. Thank you guys very much. Have a good day, everyone.